Today, before we begin teaching the Lotus Sutra, let me share a few things with you. What things should I share? There are quite a few matters. First of all, the first matter I want to mention to everyone here today is this. The study group will be conducting exams for what should be the 13th session in a short while. The exams for the 15th session a while ago went very well, I must say. Our exams are indeed very important. Although they are quite exhausting to organize, whether it is the Dharma teachers here or the administrators in various places, everyone works very hard. But generally speaking, as I have mentioned many times before, our study group is a very pure platform for listening, contemplating, and practicing. 3 words: listen, contemplate, practice. A platform for hearing, contemplation, and meditation. We do not emphasize anything else. For instance, all kinds of fundraising activities are not allowed on our study group platform. Looking at it from many perspectives now, indeed, in just these few short years, the impact we have had, I am not praising ourselves here. This is not self-praise while denigrating others. Many people may also be doing this work, but sometimes the power of dependent origination is inconceivable. This is also due to the efforts of all our volunteers, our Dharma teachers, and many great masters. It is due to many different conditions. We do not concern ourselves with which school or tradition people belong to. No matter which tradition someone follows, as long as they have faith and meet the requirements, we welcome them to study with us. I also do not claim ownership over anyone. Our study group has been running for over 10 years now. From the beginning until now, we made this commitment from the start. At first, some people were quite worried. They wondered if their disciples would go study there for 2 years and never come back. But this has never happened. We do not need to possess anyone. We also do not need to exploit anyone, because nowadays, sometimes through various methods, people end up having their own ulterior motives. What is our purpose? In this age of the decadent Dharma, many people appear to be studying Buddhism, but if they actually lack the basic teachings and practice of Buddhism, this is not a very optimistic situation. That is why we establish such a platform. Moreover, we keep it very pure and simple. We do not engage in any unlawful behavior or activities. We also often say that on our platform, we do not participate in fundraising or business transactions. If there are some places that use my name or the name of others to do such things, that is definitely not correct. So over all these years, although in the process of running things and in the course of making progress, sometimes I myself work very hard as well. Our team of Dharma teachers also works very hard, and our lay practitioners also work very hard. But overall, looking at it now, wherever we go, we are still making some impact. If a poet were to exaggerate this, or if some historian were to speak of it, there would be things to say and write about. There would be content. But we still maintain a low-key approach to hearing, contemplating, and practicing. Our principle is hearing, contemplation, and practice. Our current visible activity is also hearing, contemplation, and practice. In the future, some people have asked me, might someone file a complaint against it? Might it be destroyed and cease to exist? I said, even if it ceases to exist, that is fine. I have never been attached to what it is. I do not have any attachment. As long as it can continue to persist, even when I leave this world, if there is still such a community, whether we call it a Buddhist study group, organization, or community, if they continue it, that would be wonderful. That would be something I would be very joyful about. If everything were to disappear before I leave this human realm, I would not suffer or be troubled either, because everything arises from dependent origination. Even our own bodies have birth and death. Why should we be attached to these conditioned phenomena? There is no meaning in that. So some people may wonder about me, will you be very attached in the future? If all of this were gone, what would you do? I think it would not matter much. Each person fundamentally is neither one nor different, neither permanent nor severed. These are the words the Bhagavats teach as the taste of nectar. This is taught in the root stanzas of the middle way. What does this nectar teaching of the Buddha primarily teach? All phenomena are neither one nor different, neither permanent nor severed. This is the best nectar medicine for the Buddha to guide sentient beings. This nectar medicine is just like this. So why should we be attached to these things? So today I have no attachment, yet I do have attachment. On the surface this seems contradictory, but actually it is not. In reality I have no attachment at all, yet I am extremely attached. This principle should be understood clearly. So over all these years I have devoted much of my time to this. Therefore Dharma, friends in various places have gained somewhat. What they did not understand before, they now understand. What was unclear before but now is clear. If they had no realization before and now have some realization, this is also due to the blessings of the three jewels and the Guru. Today I want to tell everyone here that in the future we can also use this. Previously, right from the beginning, we used the sun, the moon, and the sky. Today we all drew them freely. It is an artistic approach, but when we represent it, we use BSA. In the future we may, for instance, among other religious groups and in other contexts, if we directly call it a Buddhist study association, sometimes including in various countries, some people are quite resistant to Buddhism regarding personal identity as well. If you say what you are or that you are involved in Buddhist studies, some teachers and intellectuals may feel a bit uncomfortable with that. So in the process of globalization, we will use 3 English letters as a substitute. I also hope that through this dependent origination, many members throughout the world will join us. A while ago, I also mentioned that we found a natural stone. I do not know if you can see this. Wow. Can you see it? Huh? Is it clear? It is natural. Someone gave this to me. Come on. It seems you cannot see it. In the future, in various places, I hope we can integrate into this world through wisdom, skillful means, and great compassion. Today, I want to share this with everyone. Today is an auspicious day, and I wanted to speak about this. I also hope that in the future, on one hand, we can pray to the Dharma protectors and pray to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 3 times, that the conditions for propagating the Dharma and benefiting beings will not just be within a small scope, but should extend wherever the blue sky reaches, wherever the earth reaches, wherever the sun and moon shine, and for all sentient beings with life to bring direct and indirect benefit. This is our aspiration. To start off, everyone, even though we're running a little late today, I hope that's all right. Let's recite the Wang Du, the great cloud of blessings, together once.
Samye Chimphu Mali Kirkuyam Chorukshima Shoto Shargyon Shuderdon Wanza Dorje Hwaon Rakitso Nantan Yamba Chimbodon Kayi Karji Chasanyang Gamna Sangha Jeje Kanzon Ogurma Bongornde Onlanke Chije Danje Yojan Nina Nanye Onjan Dogenjan Dorje Shaje Jaba Chimbayi Nachade Chimbodon She Tayi Jimchi Jave Rurgurijan Dorji Gongwe She Ajeje Ramjan Zason Wanga Latsola Gibe Suran Desa Shinjin Chada Wajan Donggen Hunta Tome Wanda Shiben Ojerso.
Great. Going forward, I hope you will all make a real effort. For as long as you live, come join us in spreading the Dharma and benefiting beings. Making this kind of aspiration is truly important. This is the first matter I wanted to mention. Now the second matter. When we teach the Lotus Sutra and the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras every day, many people listen to the classes very well. Who sent that? Send me the photo I just took. Now, the situation is this. When we are listening to classes now, mainly it is the Han people who listen in greater numbers. But some of our Tibetan people should also develop the habit of listening to teachings. This is very important. Generally speaking, among our Tibetan community, there are quite a few in places like Lhasa and Qinghai. Here in Sichuan, listening to teachings online is very convenient now. So I also hope that in the future, some of the young people here in Sichuan should learn to listen to some Dharma teachings. This is very important. Even if you truly cannot understand the teachings, then the recitations at the beginning, reciting the King of Aspiration prayers, are truly extremely important. You should all look at His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche's Always Present, which explains the merits of recitation before and after class. So we really hope that everywhere, sure, it's easy for us here, but if everyone learns to truly listen to the teachings, then within just that short span of an hour or two, the roots of virtue you plant are inconceivable. So looking to the future, I know some of you have been listening all along, and that is excellent, but some are not very ideal in terms of studying the Dharma. In this regard, in the future, we should encourage many of our young people, even if it is just the recitation of the King of Aspiration prayers before and after, the merit is also inconceivable. Everyone should pay attention to this. This is what I wanted to mention here. Of course, many people here still highly value the coursework, including when I myself go out. I travel through the night to come back for class. Here we also have matters to attend to at times like this. In order not to delay the class, everyone travels day and night. Everyone takes this seriously. It is really important. Going forward, everyone needs to continue prioritizing these studies. The more seriously you take it, the faster the blessings will flow into your mind stream. But if you start caring less and less, if you don't care about the teacher or the text and don't even care about the class schedule, then the Dharma will have little to no effect on your mind stream. So our aspiration for a certain knowledge and our faith are extremely crucial. If you have great faith and joy in a particular text, at the very least it will directly or indirectly bring genuine blessings and benefit to you. This is very important. Actually, I still wanted to say a few things, but I have forgotten them. I traveled through the night yesterday to return, so today I am a bit tired. I feel as if I have not quite woken up yet, so I will stop here. When we recite the lineage in a little while, if I happen to remember, I will add more for everyone, okay? Actually, I had prepared a few things just now, but now I have completely forgotten them all.
Tene Jean San Hua Xia Chabri Jirton Yarton Chauke and Jitin Jikam Jid the Ravnikan de Ram Tomba, Saram Ne Tomba. Tedder Tamji Jondan de Jishan and Tarmojan, Jondan de Landerkit Sorto, Jondan de Tejan Shaba, Yonsam Yang Lende, Dr. San Jijan Tamjan, Jondan de Jean Kant La Bacanda, Jondan de Yonsam Yang Lende Vivarte. Tang tel chuji namjang de shabar gyu chumden de dachang de chuji namjang chimbun de zongwa dang flagba dang tanba dang rab de shaba dang yikim zhiban sarwa la so tinin jahor la so pa shanju sangwa chao chu jar tong mangbo da ji ten ji kam mamje ban de la ne ba tang ji ten ji kam mamje ban de la ne ba te ne ba da Gerlong ma dang, Gernin ma dang, La dang, Lo dang, Novjin dang, Zhiza dang, Lama yan dang, Namkar dang dang, Magam che dang, Toji Chimbo dang, Ma dang, Magam Namba dang, Janju Zangwa Jimbo, Gung Longo Shima Niji Jordan de Lander ke Jexor do Jordan. Shanchu Sanhua Jimbo Kongo Longo Shima Niji Jordan de Lander ke Jexor do Jordan de Devan Shabam Nyang Lende ne Dachak. Chuji Namjang the Yang Tagabar Rapta Shabra Joe, Jordan de Li, Murda Varatnang La Nede, Yanji Yang Tagabar Jobber Joe, Giversa, Machumba Simpson, Nala Giversa, Chumber Joe, Tenet Jordan. Shanzu Zawa, Jimbo, Nama, Sodan, So Jimbo, and So Jilon de Kaksu. So Jubo, Shanzu Zawa, Jimbo, Joba, Tabra Janji Shava, Sodan, So Jimbo, Dada, So. Jirlogun dandır gıcık kapsar do şoba kabar canna lakso çocuğu tertip badan çocuğu namranda şırdı çeçi devjan şaba yonsar membra Jesu denip jondan de devjan şaba şırdı badam jondan de yonsum nyanen deba devjan şaba rabjun bayan dobur zoba san jirinçin mantin çirtin ji wini sanki çalavjik bani zımbam zat ne nik jartir goner jirdi Wangbo Chong Te Jagdi Wangbo Te Ni Jiang Zamban Ji Ten Ji Warda Shen Jagdi Wangbo Te Ni Le Wozir Shia Chak Chu Jar Tong Mangbo Shong Wozir Te Dagle Wozir Re Le Jiang Shan Chu San Hua Shia Chak Chu Jar Tong Chong Mangbo Li Ji Mdo Ser Bo Ka To Ser Ji Ka To Jawa Jiu Chenbo Nam Sim Chi Zang Ni Da Damba Ba Min Nyang Bo Seng Gi Ji Chalang Ko Ba Dog Shong Shan Chu San Hua De Dag Jiang Chok Dang Chung Zim Ji Ji Ten Ji Kam Ja Tong Dag Dag Dong Te Shogdang Shongzum Te Dag Tam Che Ne War Nang Lang Ko Ne Chur Ton To Ter Ter Chongdan De Te Jong Soba Jab Jong Ba Yang Dog Bar Zoba San Ji Shik Ja Da Ba Dam Chongdan De Te Jong Soba Jab Jong Ba Yang Dog Bar Zoba San Ji Ren Chen Ma Gerjek Ji Wang Bor Zum Chi Ji Chum Chum Za Ba Te Jin Den Ji Ten Ji Kam Shia Chok Chu Jar Tong Zha Jan Dang Ne Ja Te Jong Soba Jab Jong Ba Yang Dog Bar Zoba San Ji Gang Dag Zha Ba Ren Chen Rimbo Chi Jun Bi Xiang Ji Zhong Na San Ge Che La Yu Ba Te Dag Jiang Jek Ji Wang Bor Zum Chi Ji Chum Chum Za Do Tenip Chongdan De Shik Ja Da Ba Dam Chong Te Jong Soba Ren Chen Ma Dang Te Jong Soba Jab Jong Ba Yang Dog Bar Zoba San Ji Te Lam Chi Ji Lom Bum San Ge War Da Zim Chen Zang Ren Da Xie Ba Za Do Tene Lom Bum De Ne Te Jong Soba Jab Jong Ba Yang Dog Bar Zoba San Ji Te Tak Jek Ji Wang Bo Te Tak Di De Di Chig De Ka Chig Tang Chig Yit Zim Chig La Tam Chi De Ngir Sarwa Dra Chenpo Shong Te Sekur Tok Ba Chig Dra Chig Za Do Ngir Sarwa Dra Chenpo Te Tak Sekur Tok Bi Dra Chenpo Ti Shok Ji San Ji Ji Xiang Xia Chak Chuk Jar Tong Chak Chirni Ba Te Tak Tam Chok Yubra Chir De Rabda Yubde Rabda Yubar Kanda Yubadan Rabda Ngarwa Rabda Kanda Ngarwa Rabda Ngarwa Dan Dag Rabda Dagbadan Kanda Dagwo Rabda Dagwo San Ji Ji Xiang Te Tak Na La Dan La Dan No Zhen Dan Zhiza Dan Lama Yan Dan Namkar Dan Dan Mangam Chen Dan To Ju Chenpo Dan Ma Dan Ma Yan Bi Sem Chi Chirni Ban Ko Ba Te Tak Tam Chi Dug Zhen Da San Ji Jim Ti Te Tam Che Ji Ji Nen Ji Kan Mam Je Ban Dum Tong Te Te Zhang Shao Ba Xia Chak Chuk Jar Tong Rinpo Che Jun Xiang Ge Zhong Ge San Ke Chi Su Su Na Te Zhang Shao Ba Zhab Chun Ba Yang Dog Bar Zo Ba San Ji Te Do Te Do Te Yang Dog Bar Zo Ba San Ji Shak Jia Zi Ba Dam Chun Den De Ning An Len De Ba Te Zhang Shao Ba Zhab Chun Ba Yang Dog Bar Zo Ba San Ji Ren Shin Mang Rinpo Chim Chur Den Chen Po Ti Wei Na San Ke Chi Lab Ji De Te Zhang Shao Ba Shak Jia Zi Ba Dang Lan Ji De Ji Ba Dang Kur Shi Po Te Dog Jiang Tong Wo Te Ni Ngom Sir De Ji Ro Ne Shinda Gawar Jir De Vatnang Le Darkin Darkida Todo Ye Chobo Don Ji Den Ji Kam Xia Chok Chu Jar Tom Chag Ho Da Me Ba Chang Me Ba Da Na Ji Den Ji Kam Mam Ji Ba Ji Xia Na De Jong Shak Ba Chab Jun Ba Yang Do Bar Zo Ba San Ji Shak Jia Da Ba Ji Xia Da Ter Ter Tam Bi Chu Ba Ma Ka Ro Ji Xia Wi Chu Ji Nam Zhang Da Shin De Ji Ba Chen Bom Dor De Xiang Chu San Hua Chen Bo Chen Bo Nam Lao Dan Ba Tam Chi Ji Yong Su Zong Wa Xiang Chu San Hua Chen Bo Nam La Yang Da Bar Rab Dan Cha Ji De La Ji Che Da Jiang La Ba San Bi Ji Zi Ye Rang War Ji Lab Jiang Dan De De Wang Shao Ba Zhab Jiang Ba Yang Do Bar Zo Ba San Ji Shik Jia Da Ba De La Xiang Zor Ju Cho Ba Ji Xi Ji Tu So De Ni De Da Tam Chi Ne War Nang Le Nang De Ra Tu Ni De Lang Ko Jiang Da Jiang Dan De De Wang Shao Ba Shik Jia Da Ba La Xiang Tsar Lo Ji Tsik Der Kir Me So Jiang Dan De De Wang Shao Ba Shik Jia Da Ba Dang Tam Bi Chu Ba Ma Ka Ru Chu Ji Nam Zhang De Lam Cho Ba Shir De Tar Mo Jar De Me Dog Dang Du Bo Dang Bu Dang Chang A Dang Shik Ba Dang Che Ma Dang Nam Za Dang Du Dang Yam Tsun Dang Li Wa Dan Dang Nam Ri Jar Wi Wa Dan Mang Bon Ji Ten Ji Kam Mam Ji Ba Ko Song De Chang Chi Dang Gua Dang Se Mo Do Dang Do Shir Dang No Ro Dang Rinpo Che Mang Bo Dang Dong Me Dog Dang Du Bo Dang Bu Dang Chang A Dang Shik Ba Dang She Ma Dang Chu Gu Dang Du Bo Dang Jamson Dang Li Wadan Dang Number Jerry Wadan Dang Semo To Dang To Shir Dang Noro Dang Rinpo Che To Ra De Tak Tam Chi Jen Ji Ten Ji Kam Mam Chen Der Gong De Me Dog Dang Du Bu Dang Bu Dang Chang A Dang Shi Ba Dang She Ma Dang Nam Za Dang Du Dang Jamson Li Wadan Dang Number Jerry Wadan Mang Bo Dang Semo To Dang To Shir Dang Noro Dang Rinpo Che De Tak Tam Che Dang Dam Ba Jikten Tam Che Dang Bi Jiten Mem Ji Bi Jang De Kap De Jin Jang De Kep De Jikten Ji Kam Jang Dang Shi Wa Chok Chu Jar Tong Chok De Tak Han Ji De Keper Jer Ne Shi Den Jer De 更大那的种说把的日本人今天看需要出家动作的他们自己那个南开瓦能啦没多拉瑞清波记的开不记多的你中等的几说把开不讲拉说不像就生活清波的那拉不在外日记的就说把的准备样都不做不上节nam to samji me chi parte rik ji wa te da chu ji nam jang da yong sa ta bi shir da nge kara sha cha chu ja to mo ba chu ji go nam tar wa ta pa yon nam jang mo bo sha mo ji nge chu ji nam jang da yon da sha jang yon den ji par da ma je do ji den ji rik ji wa gang da do na san ji ji chu tam ja da san ji chim sho do jer wa tam ja da san ji ji sa ja mo tam ja da san ji ji za mo na tam chi nge chu ji nam jang da sha do rik ji wa te do de sta we na ji ji jang de jang sha ba yong sam ning den de bi chu ji nam真的了，基本上是下午、单本下午、一根这下午、老本下午、รับตัว下本下午、公本下午、这本下午，日记了，对的，说刚那最近咱们真的老干嘛，端咱们รับ但吃咱们一根这个。sem don dam kadon she tam lawam dan yeram kunga ravi xigla khang kim ma ne sam xiang zhong ma khang ba ga ma ne khang pugna de jiang rong de sa zhou de de sha bin chu den xia wo de ji shi jin sa zhou de de sha ba dam ji ji xiang ji ji nyang bo la ri ber ja sa zhou de de sha ba zhe zhe ba yong de bo zong san ji la na me ba yong de bo zong xiang zhe de ngom ber zo ber san ji ba ri ber xia sa zhou de de sha ba dam ji ji ju jin ko la do ko ri sa zhou de de sha ba dam ji yong sam nyang le de ri ber 대내 정도인데 즉즉 잡반도 갑자도 원시 원시 시라는 게 jirten 반비 주는 삼마 결리전도 더 건도 가위 타이 견기 점치 잡도 단나 고즈르 동바랍도 근기장 저디원보 정빈지된 게 장좀 저라 지버대도 몸스르지르 점치대도 단나 상지 남김 거르스르 잠자베 세고르치가 자도 강숑와 대도 조진지된 좀 jirten kamba tamchit kuroshi tamchit kuroshi tani tedo gani shudini devjin nyangdanim donzan ba tedo tangna chungcha janamada yondar namna panjang sirdan bayin jiten namjin nyang deva nam dordem chungda kang zambay dekshik chepor namgi ngak ba na karashia tongchang mamjo kyang tedag yondon thai tedag yondon thai tedag kana yondon thai de jirtar chukji sun namka jina kang dak tagdam dordem dunzan ba tedag yondon samji meche ban jiten jembam nyang deban nga dan jemban da tamchadam thong shanchu sanwa mambo kanda da gorje namjang de dan thong aye de dang dar nge ni bra she jaru gombo nyang de da dan chukji namna kang da jan da jan ji ba de ba dan che ni bra she da kang gam do den dan zin ba zin she ba de dan ta ta ma jun sang je dan shou je dan na kang ji kang da ji ba yang de gram thong jan shin dum chu bran je ram do de de da chu gang zin de shang chu nyang bo rap da kang gu ba kiem chu nam ji sang chen shi bran je de ne de yang am de ji zin zin kang jim do de dan ban dan zin ba de bo ba dong nam tai yan ji de long na kang de to ga me chu dang don dang ni zi ni bi zi de jiang zhen ba nam ji gong de gang song ba am do de nam ji chan ji ren de sta de xie nam ren zhen ba nyang de ba yim do de nam ji don de xi xue na da wa ni man zha wer de rin ji de xin de nang jiang sar wer xie xie ber ji de ne xin de nang jiang sar xie ji de ne sa la je xiang de dang de xiang zhu zhen hua mang bo yang dang zi de de xiang zhu zhen hua ke ba dang dang zha yi na pan yong de tu ni nyang an de lim don de zong xi dang de dang de zong me ber xiang zhu bin je tan bi chu pa ma kar wo le de zhong shi bi zhen zhi ngom ber de shi bi le ge ji xia de le ge ni shi ba wo.
Also, we recite quite a lot in Tibetan transmission, chapter on entrustment. Every day when we teach the Lotus Sutra, if we were to recite the entire transmission of the Tripitaka, probably you would all, I do not know what you would feel. If I were to recite it, it would probably take about 6 months to finish, reciting continuously starting at 6 in the morning with almost no rest in between, with maybe half an hour of rest at noon, then continuing to recite until 9 or 10 at night, continuously for 6 months. Previously, our Ditsa Rinpoche transmitted the transmission 3 times in his lifetime. In 1986, when we were at Larunga, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche invited him to recite it. At that time, in 1986, we had to go out to propagate the Dharma, so we did not get to hear the transmission. Later, he transmitted it twice at our monastery. It was truly remarkable. He was extremely diligent.
dan de le jang de tam 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 bi shang chu san hua de de di ni zum chi ngum bra za ba yong se zhe bi xiao ye be de de ge le ba ye ne zong de di zing de ge ji ga sar do ri ji wo da ni ga ra chang me ba xia chao chu jian dong zhe yang de bra zhe ba la na me ba yang de bra zo ba shang jim de qie ji le de da do yong se da do ji se da do xia guo da mo ri ji chechi jini yang ya chir jeber jerwa de jishi lan ni sim lan sim de jondon de ji le chig ye ba tam je tam bi shang ju san hua ci gi le ba ye ne zong ten der ke ji ga zar do ri ji we nge ka ra chang me ba xia chok ju ger dong zhong yang da bu zhe ba la na me ba yang da bu zo bu shang jim de chechi le de da do yong se da do ji se da do je ko da mo Rikiwa keki lang la zong logo shang chipo tambar xiao xiao semchen tamche la jobar xiao rikiwa gang da serna me don zimba sem me don jigba me bi san ji yishi jimba go devjang shbi yishi rangshong go yishi jimba go rikiwa gang da jimbi dagbo chimbo te rikiwa gang da keki jis lobshi serna me ki la devjang shba yishim tongwe tab ke chembo chujir namjang de gongjiang thabra rikji wa dang rikji wo mo kang la zhogshi rikji wa gam rikji wo mo kang da tapa dang semjin kang da ma da ba de de chujir namjang da la yang tagbar yang tagbar yang tagbar zong sha wo rikji wa de de ke ji de de jene devjang shba devjang shba la la lomber njero chon den de devjang shba jab chen ba yang do por zo san ji shakya de be ter ke chip kap sar ne shan ju san wa chembo de de ga dam chog de ga dam kebr shibr jerne ji se ji chi chir ke de chon den de devjang shba jab chen ba yang do por zo san ji shakya de ba de le logs lip de ne rap de ne li chim de mgu lang ne tharmo jar de tamchil Darkada chigda jonda de dong shaba shagya tabalandar ke jibka sar do teni devjang shaba terke jibka sarve devjang de charlo devjang de
Actually, I have a large volume in which the Tripitaka is much easier to read. This one is too small.
Jondan de shabe ka tsara de do de devjang dan charlo devjang shaba tamjat kipka yongsur zobrib kiba dan jondan de tgla chipjang tgle chongor chibdir jigso sur lanag nixim langsam da yang tamchat dan bi shanchib sen hwan phakbi tsokte la darkda chigda tsig darka chip jondan de ji tgle chongor je devre jigso sur jondan de terkchi devjang shabe ka tsara jondu devjang shaba tamchi ji yongsur zobrib gyo jigsor do tenib jondan de devjang shaba rab jumba yang da bur zoba san ji shigya ta ba dan jiten ji kang jan ne shon ba devjang shaba rab jumba yang da bur zoba san ji de da tamchi hlar xyag sa sur devjang shaba rab jumba yang da bur zoba san ji de da jiv de ne brum zo chi ji devjang shaba de da la de ne brum zo chi ji sur do jondan de devjang shaba rab jumba yang da bur zoba san ji rinchen ma tim churten Churten yang de chertar jigso jako devjang shaba rab jumba yang do bur zo san ji de la yang chib der jigshi ji sor do jondan de ter ke chip kap sar ne devjang shaba rab jumba yang da bur zo ba sang ji zhang me da ho de me ban ji tin ji kan jan da ne shun ba rimbo ji jun xiang da ge zhong na san ge zhe la ji ba de jing shi ba de zhen ba yang da bur zo ba sang ji ren chen nang dang tam chi nang dan bi shun zu sen hui cok de da dang shu ba kya bar cha la so ba saram ne ton bi shang shu sen hua chen bu zhang me ba ho de me ba de da dang yang tu chen bu de da ku ru ji bu de da dang la dang ma dang la ma yang dang zhi za dang ji bin ji ten yi ren de zhong den de jie song ba la mong bar to do dan bi ju pa ma kar wo le yong so tik bi le ge ji sha ni shi zab den ba wo
This is the Tibetan chapter on entrustment. Actually, the chapter on entrustment is the last chapter. Here, according to Kumarajiva's translation, we have moved it forward and recited the transmission of this content today. Today, our content is not much, only 2 chapters. Really, I already went to the chapter on Bodhisattva Sada Paribhuta. It has already been half an hour. Just now I remembered one thing I wanted to say. Our volunteers here also work very hard. The Dharma teachers of each class should also care for them. Serving while studying is very tiring and difficult. But we should try our best to help them and understand them. This is one thing. Also, yesterday I went to Duamang Monastery. The volunteers are working very hard. Over there, it can be really difficult to even listen to the oral transmissions. The internet cuts out sometimes too. That's why we have a few specific people in our schools and monasteries, part of the dedicated team I've assigned there. They're still managing to study and contemplate while teaching children and serving the community. The same goes for the Dharma friends working on the construction projects. It's truly a lot of hard work. They are not just serving in a simple way. They also have the pressure of studying and contemplating. In this way, I also hope that on one hand, if someone is truly not well in their volunteer work, we should try our best to care for them and see what can be done, because I am also especially busy and often cannot attend to everyone. The leaders in various places here should also see what difficulties there are. The Dharma teachers at our Larunga should try their best to care for them. I want to mention this here. It is not easy at all. Serving in other places like this, especially in the Tibetan region in winter and autumn, the weather is extremely cold, their health is not good, and the workload is quite large. If you are not a strong person, it is truly very difficult to handle many things. Now today we will teach the Lotus Sutra. We have covered 20 chapters before, and today we teach chapter 21. Before this, let me briefly share a story. In the Legends in Praise of the Lotus Sutra, there is a story. There was a person. He was a monastic. When he was young, he should have accumulated a great deal of negative karma. He was very brave and wild like that. Later, when he reached 30 years of age, it was as if he woke from a dream and developed faith in Buddhism. He would often go to monasteries, eat vegetarian food, and accumulate merit. Especially he would recite the Lotus Sutra. Later, he made the aspiration to produce 100 copies. Nowadays, buying 100 copies of a book is not so difficult. In the past, producing 100 copies of the Lotus Sutra was extremely difficult. But later, he also gathered some money. Once there were thieves who prepared to rob all of his possessions. As a result, he said, "I do not have anything else, only some money for producing the Lotus Sutra." Then the thief also did not dare to take it. Perhaps there was some compassion among those thieves. Later he truly fulfilled his wish. 100 copies of the Lotus Sutra were already completed. After they were completed, he continued practicing. Later, at the time of his death, he truly was reborn in the pure land of Sukhavatu with many auspicious signs. In his story, so sometimes when we look at it, whether it is being reborn in Sukhavata or the merits of future lives, it is also due to what we do in this life, either requesting the Lotus Sutra or reciting the Lotus Sutra. On the surface, it may seem quite simple, but actually there are extremely great merits. As practitioners, sometimes we can feel that in this Saha world, we often generate negative thoughts and accumulate negative karma. It seems we have no confidence in ourselves and have lost confidence like this. But sometimes when we look at it, we are truly here in a place where the Dharma flourishes, and we have encountered the supports of the 3 jewels, and also texts like the Lotus Sutra. If we form a virtuous connection with such an excellent text, text, just as Longchenpa said, even dwelling in the Saha world, our hearts will not have sorrow. So encountering this Dharma is still especially important for us. I will briefly share this story. Below, I will briefly explain the literal meaning for everyone. Today's content is also not especially difficult. You should all understand it from the literal level. Today we teach the chapter on the transcendent powers of the Tathagata. The Buddha displays spiritual powers and miraculous transformations for everyone. The chapter on spiritual powers mainly shows everyone some relatively special things, including the appearance of some spiritual powers below. Let us continue with the teaching. At this time, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas equal to the number of particles in the great manifold cosmos. At this time, there were so many Bodhisattva Mahasattvas. They emerged from the great earth. Then they all stood before the Buddha, all with palms pressed together, gazing at the Bhagavat. They all spoke in unison, making this request before the Buddha, O Bhagavat, in the future, after the Buddha's parinirvana, in the lands where the Bhagavat's emanation bodies are located, or in those places and lands where they have entered parinirvana. We will widely propagate the Lotus Sutra. They don't have any taboos about it either. Otherwise, if they had just come out and said, Bhagavat, after you're gone, we're going to do this and that, most people in the secular world would be pretty upset, thinking, I'm not even dead yet. And you're already saying, I'm still here. And you're talking about what's going to happen when I'm gone. But in Buddhism, generally speaking, when it comes to death, everyone sees it as a perfectly natural part of life. For example, many gurus often say in class, after I pass away, this is what should happen, yet the guru just keeps on living. Eventually, many disciples start to feel like he's never going to die. I suppose those gurus are just practicing mindfulness of impermanence. Some older gurus I know, every time they come to a Dharma assembly, they say, I tried every possible way to come this time. This time is my last time to participate this Dharma assembly. Then the second time they say it again. This time is my last time attending the Dharma assembly. But actually there seem to be many, many last times. At first many people think the guru is omniscient and probably truly knows that he will soon depart. Later they think perhaps the guru does not know either. Perhaps he is estimating or something. What does it mean? We also do not understand. There are cases like that. But look at the Buddha here saying, after you enter parinirvana, we will diligently propagate this sutra. Why is this? Because we also wish to attain the true, pure, great Dharma, the Lotus Sutra, and to preserve, recite, explain, copy, and make offerings. The reason is he did not say we are doing this to benefit sentient beings. On the surface, in the appearance, it is only for ourselves, just as the second verse in the Way of the Bodhisattva says, the purpose is that we should practice this great Dharma well. So we will diligently propagate it and recite it ourselves. Wherever you have entered parinirvana or wherever your emanations are, we will propagate it diligently. At that time, the Bhagavat, with Manjushra at the forefront, immeasurable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis who have long dwelled in the Saha world. Perhaps they have always been dwelling in the Saha world. These Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas of the Saha world, as well as monks, nuns, laymen and laywomen, as well as devas, nagas, yaksas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas and kimnaras, mahoragas, humans and non-humans, and so forth. Before all these sentient beings, the Buddha displayed great miraculous transformations. Before these sentient beings. You see, these bodhisattvas just said in the presence of the Buddha that they would propagate the Lotus Sutra. The plot sometimes shifts back and forth, so you should still review this carefully. Sometimes the storyline changes quite quickly. At this time, before Manjushra and the others, as well as all the devas, nagas, yaksas, and so forth, before all humans and non-humans, the Buddha manifested great transcendent powers. What kind of great transcendent powers did he manifest? He displayed his broad and long tongue. His tongue appeared extremely large and reaching all the way to the Brahma Heaven. In the Tibetan version, it says that Shakyamuni Buddha and Tathagata Prabhutaratna, both Buddhas also manifested transcendent powers. That's how it's explained. In the commentary on the Amitabha Sutra, it seems to say that if someone hasn't spoken falsehood for 3 lifetimes, their tongue can touch their nose. if for many more lifetimes they haven't spoken falsehood, then like the Buddha, they can extend their tongue in this extraordinary way. This is a manner of manifesting miraculous transformation. It's truly astonishing. Ordinary beings cannot do this. To manifest transcendent powers in this way. Moreover, from all his pores he emitted immeasurable, countless rays of light, innumerable colored lights that completely illuminated all worlds in the 10 directions, and the Buddhas seated on lion thrones beneath many jeweled trees did likewise, displaying their broad and long tongues and emitting immeasurable light. Shakyamuni Buddha and the Buddhas beneath the jeweled trees manifested these transcendent powers for a period of hundreds of thousands of years, an extremely long time. Later they withdrew these transcendent powers. These are transcendent powers, because this is the chapter on transcendent powers at that time, including Shakyamuni Buddha and Prabhutaratna, as well as the other Buddhas beneath the jeweled trees, all manifested inconceivable signs. Then they coughed in unison, and they all snapped their fingers together. Sometimes when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche was teaching, he would do many of these gestures. At that time, these sounds of coughing and finger snapping, these two sounds seemed quite small on the surface, but actually they pervaded all worlds in the 10 directions, and the earth also shook in 6 ways. At that time, these two sounds also were like what Nyosho Lungtok's disciples described in some accounts of masters. Even just a cough, for those who have devotion to the master, can bring different perceptions and different understanding. When observing with pure perception, joking or coughing, for example, these too can have meaning. So here, with the Buddha, at that time, these two small sounds also shook the worlds. Among the sentient beings there, Devas, Nagas, Yaksas, Gandharvas, Asuras, Kimnaras, and all these beings, through the Buddha's transcendent power, all saw in this Saha world the immeasurable, limitless hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of Buddhas beneath jeweled trees. Through the Buddha's blessings at that time, they also seemed to see in this Saha world immeasurable and limitless beings in our Saha world. They also saw Shakyamuni Buddha and Prabhutaratna seated on the lion throne within the jeweled stupa. What else did they see? Immeasurable, limitless hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of bodhisattva, mahasattvas, and the fourfold assembly all surrounding Shakyamuni Buddha. At that time, through the Buddha's transcendent power, this is truly inconceivable, very difficult to imagine. But when we accept this through the power of faith, this too is extremely rare and precious. After seeing this, everyone was extremely joyful, a joy they had never experienced before, because through the Buddha's transcendent power, at that time, not only the Buddha, but everything in the entire Saha world surrounding them was all visible. This scene was very magnificent, truly wonderful. At this time, a voice sounded forth in the sky. This was from other worlds, beyond immeasurable, limitless, hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of incalculable worlds. There is one called the Saha world. This was from other worlds. At this time, beings from these other worlds received this voice that sounded forth from the sky, saying that beyond innumerable, incalculable worlds, there is one called the Saha world. In this Saha world, there is a Buddha called Shakyamuni. This Shakyamuni Buddha is now teaching the Mahayana Dharma to the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas. Moreover, this Mahayana Dharma is called the Lotus Sutra. It is the instruction for Bodhisattvas and treasured lore of the Buddhas. You should all deeply rejoice in this, and you should also prostrate to Shakyamuni Buddha. At that time, the sentient beings in those other pure lands, upon hearing this voice echoing through the sky, all joined their palms and prostrated toward the Saha world. And as they faced the Saha world, they spoke together in one voice, Namo Bhagavat Shakyamuni Buddha. Notice they did not say our teacher, because he is not their teacher. Shakyamuni Buddha is our own fundamental teacher. This phrase, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, is what we often recite before our teachings begin. In this prayer, we invoke the names of the Tathagata. We offer homage, offerings, and take refuge in the Bhagavat, the Sugata, the Arhat, the perfectly enlightened one, our teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. We recite this 7 times every single day. We are truly fortunate to have such great merit. I believe there is a treatise in the Avadhanamala which explains that when we recite Bhagavat Shakyamuni Buddha, or simply Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, we can purify the negative karma of 8 billion eons. So we really should not take this lightly. Don't think, what's the big deal about reciting a name 7 times? Or what difference does chanting the Buddha's mantra a few dozen times make? You must never think that way. Before and after our daily classes, these practices are actually incredibly important. Of course, if you don't believe in these things, that is another story. Then there is not much more for us to say. Originally, regarding supernormal powers and miracles, it is discussed in the Abhidharma Mahavibhasa. The Mahavibhasa explains that when it comes to supernormal powers, there is no need to show them to those with very firm faith, nor is there a need to show them to those with no faith at all, because those with faith already believe in their hearts. Even if you do not perform any miracles, their faith is already enough, and those without faith simply will not believe anyway, no matter what you show them. But there is a middle group that is half believing and half doubting. If you show them a miracle, they will believe. If you don't, they won't. There is such a group of people. So when the Buddha manifests all sorts of miracles, it is for people like them. Now, when Buddhas and Bodhisattvas guide sentient beings, why don't some of them show supernormal powers? Actually, displaying these powers is not all that important, but occasionally having these powers and miraculous displays is indeed very necessary and quite helpful. So we should understand that if we truly have faith in the Dharma, then we don't need so-called miracles at all. They aren't needed at all. Many people have very strong faith. Others have no faith at all. In that case, even if you show them supernormal powers and miracles, they would just view it as superstition and simply would not believe. But then there is that middle group of people. It is the same principle when it comes to the merit of the Buddha's name, the merit of mantras, or the merit of Dharma ceremonies. Some people just do not believe in them. There is nothing we can do about that, and speaking to them does not really help. Yet some people believe quite deeply. For them, you do not even need to say a word because they already understand. But then you have that middle group. If you do not explain things clearly to them, they might not practice. But if you do explain it well, they begin to develop faith. People's spiritual faculties are indeed quite different. So what we are teaching here is that beings from other worlds also recite Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. The merit of doing this is truly immense. At that time, while prostrating to the Buddha, these beings scattered all kinds of flowers, incense, necklaces and banners, as well as various ornaments and offerings for the body, including rare treasures and wonderful gifts, scattering them from their distant pure lands toward our Saha world. These offerings came flowing in from all 10 directions. They gathered like massive clouds and transformed into a jeweled canopy above the Buddha, like a magnificent jeweled parasol. All worlds in the 10 directions became open and unobstructed. This was the scene at that moment. The Buddha then addressed Bodhisattva Vishistakaritra and the others, saying, "The supernormal powers of the Buddhas are immeasurable, limitless, and inconceivable. If I were to use these powers for countless hundreds of thousands of billions of eons to entrust these teachings to you and speak of the merits of the Lotus Sutra, I would still never be able to finish describing them. To put it simply, or to summarize it for you, this Lotus Sutra contains every single Dharma that the Tathagata possesses. The Dharma of all Buddhas throughout the 3 times is right here, whether it is Sutrayana or Vajrayana, including teachings like the treasure of the Dharma Dhatu and so forth. All of the Tathagata's sovereign supernormal powers are here as well. All of the Tathagata's secret and essential treasures, meaning the Kalakakra, Tantra and Dzogchen within the secret teachings, can be found here indirectly. Directly speaking, because some pith instructions of the secret teachings, if one were to extract them directly from the Lotus Sutra, it would certainly be quite difficult. Furthermore, all the profound teachings of the Tathagata have been fully expounded within the Lotus Sutra. You see, this is taught very clearly here. Therefore, after the Tathagata's parinirvana, you should wholeheartedly uphold, recite, explain, and copy this sutra and practice according to its sacred dharma. In any land, if there is someone who can uphold, recite, explain, copy, and practice it faithfully, wherever the Lotus Sutra Sutra is kept, whether it is placed in a garden, in a forest, under a tree, in a monastery, in a layperson's home, in a Dharma hall, or in mountain valleys and wilderness, no matter where it may be, we should build a stupa and make offerings there. There are two ways to explain this. One says that wherever this sutra resides, it is no different from a stupa or the Tathagata's own body. But in this context, it means that wherever the Lotus Sutra is found, a physical stupa should be built. For example, if you have a copy of the Lotus Sutra at home, then you should also build a small stupa in your house. Or if it was in a place where you once lived, a stupa should be built there as well. And why is that? Because wherever the Lotus Sutra is located is actually a place of enlightenment. Now, what is a place of enlightenment? It is the place where all Buddhas attained supreme and perfect enlightenment. The spot where they first attained Buddhahood is right here. The place where they turned the wheel of Dharma is also here. And finally, the place where all Buddhas of the 3 times entered parinirvana is also here. So building a stupa in such a place is truly appropriate. In modern times, some masters will build a stupa at the site of their birth and another at the site where they pass away. Some people often ask, why don't you Tibetans place much value on saying happy birthday? Things are a bit different now, but in the past many people didn't even know when they were born. We often explain that while celebrating a birthday is fine, Tibetans generally value the moment of death more than the moment of birth. So most people can easily remember the day someone passed away, but they might not necessarily remember the day they were born. There is a profound meaning behind this, and history reflects this truth as well. If you come into this world, you will certainly have to leave it. Besides, the time we spend living is quite short, whereas the time after death is very long. Therefore, in our own historical tradition, we consider parinirvana to be perhaps even more significant. So why should a stupa be built wherever the Lotus Sutra is kept? It is because such a place is actually identical to the very site where the Buddha attained Bodhi, turned the Dharma wheel, and entered parinirvana. If a Buddha had attained enlightenment right here, turned the Dharma wheel here, and entered parinirvana here, we would certainly build a stupa on this spot. That is because this is where the Buddha dwells. So you see, wherever the Lotus Sutra is present, whether it is in a shrine room, in a layperson's home, or anywhere else at all, it is actually a wonderful thing to build a stupa there. This is for 3 main reasons. It is a place of enlightenment. And what does that mean? It refers to the place of awakening, of turning the wheel, and of parinirvana. So here the Lotus Sutra teaches us that the merit of this sacred text is truly inconceivable. In the future, we should not think, oh, this book is no different from Dream of the Red Chamber, or that it is just like Romance of the 3 Kingdoms. You might think 3 Kingdoms is more exciting, and that the Lotus Sutra is just repetitive or something like that. Some of us might actually think this way, but is that a helpful way to think? You should reflect on this yourselves. As for what happened before, we will not go into that now. At this point, the Bhagavat, wishing to emphasize this meaning, spoke in verse. I will explain it simply. The Buddhas, the saviors of the world, dwell within their great supernormal powers. Because they delight in benefiting sentient beings, they manifest countless and varied miraculous transformations. As a primary miracle, they display their broad and long tongue reaching up to the Brahma Heaven, and from their bodies they radiate immeasurable light. The purpose is to show these rare wonders to those seeking the Buddha path. Sometimes they manifest these wonders right before them. Even if it is just a simple stone, if it looks beautiful, people might think, wow, this stone is so amazing. Are you showing us your supernormal powers? But that isn't a supernormal power. It's just an ordinary stone someone found. Yet, the auspicious coincidence of it is still inconceivable. So sometimes when we worldly people look at causes and conditions, the coughing of the Buddhas and the sound of their snapping fingers could be heard throughout every land in the 10 directions, and the entire earth shook in 6 different ways. The Tibetan version actually describes all 6 types of shaking. After the Buddha's passing, if one can uphold this sutra, then all the Buddhas will be filled with joy and will manifest immeasurable miracles, and they entrust this sutra to us, meaning they pass it into our care. To entrust means to solemnly enjoin, as if the Buddhas are placing the teachings directly into the hands of future generations, praising those who uphold it. The Buddha repeatedly offers his exhortations and praise for this. If anyone in the future upholds this sutra after the Buddha's passing, even across countless eons, their merit can never be fully described. Such a person's merit is truly limitless and inexhaustible. One might find a boundary to empty space, but the boundaries of this merit can never be found. The Buddha said that if you can uphold this sutra, it is the same as having already seen me. You see, some of us often think, I am so sad that I never met Shakyamuni Buddha. But fortunately, if we encounter this book, the Buddha personally said that we have already seen him. You have also seen the Tathagata Prabhutaratna and all of the Buddha's countless emanation bodies as well. You have seen all the bodhisattvas I am teaching here today. Everyone who was taught at the Lotus Assembly and that entire scene, whoever sees the Lotus Sutra in the future has essentially already met the Buddha. So in terms of merit, it is exactly as if we had met the Buddha in person. Sometimes I reflect on this in my own heart. I once met His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, who was like the Buddha himself. I was fortunate to have met him. I traveled with him to many different countries and served him for a very long time. At times my faith was strong, but as ordinary beings we can sometimes see the Guru as just an ordinary person, perhaps viewing him simply as a very remarkable figure. I have also struggled with such impure thoughts. So even if we were to truly meet Shakyamuni Buddha, it's hard to say what kind of faith we would actually have, because back then in India, while many people had deep faith in him, many others not only lacked faith but were even strongly opposed to him. There were people like that too. So we don't really know if we would have faith if we were to meet the Buddha in person. But in truth, we have already met the Tathagata now. We can truly say that we are very fortunate if you can uphold this sutra. The Buddha says that he, his emanation bodies, and even the Tathagata Prabhutaratna, who has entered parinirvana, will all rejoice. The Buddha truly rejoices whenever he manifests and appears in the world. So if we want to gladden the Tathagata and receive his blessings, we should treat this book with great respect, make offerings, or even prostrate to it. By doing this, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will also be pleased. It is no different from meeting the Buddha in person. If we were to meet the Buddha's physical form, some of us who carry heavy karmic debt might not actually be able to give rise to faith. When it comes to gurus, I believe many of the teachers I have met are truly no different from the Buddhas themselves. But as for faith, some people have it while others simply do not. This is because our physical eyes as ordinary beings are veiled and our discriminating minds and consciousness are not pure. By honoring this sutra, we also see, honor, and gladden the Buddhas of the 10 directions as well as those of the past and future. If we uphold this sutra, the Tathagatas of the 3 times will also rejoice. Furthermore, those secret essentials realized while dwelling at the place of enlightenment, those profound teachings that the Buddhas obtained through their practice in the past, if you uphold this sutra, you will also attain them in the not-too-distant future. The wisdom and compassion within the mind streams of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can also be gained by relying on this sutra. Those who uphold this sutra will understand the meaning of all dharmas. Whether it's the words, the meanings, or the phrases, they will possess an endless and joyful eloquence in teaching, just like the wind moving through the sky without any obstruction. If we study this sutra, it will be of great help in opening our wisdom and bringing forth eloquence. The benefits are truly immense. Also, after the Tathagata's parinirvana, if one understands the sutras taught by the Buddha, including their context, sequence, and deep meaning, and then shares them, if someone can truly expound the Lotus Sutra after the Buddha has passed, just like us, some Dharma teachers here have already made such a vow. Some vowed to do it 3 times, others once. This is wonderful. Even though I didn't respond right away at the time, I am actually very happy that you made such aspirations. I believe that no matter what, you will surely be able to achieve this during your lifetime. Even if you don't fully accomplish it, we should still make these noble vows, striving so that in all our future lives we will never be separated from the Mahayana Dharma. The stronger a person's power of aspiration, the more they embody what Master Cheng Yen once said, "Great vows bring great power." This is absolutely true, even for someone like me who is quite ordinary. The results of making aspirations can be inconceivable. As I mentioned the other day, 10 years ago, using the symbols of the sun and moon, we aspired to benefit beings all across the globe. But it seems that later, in an almost miraculous way, these activities began to flourish in many places, arising naturally and effortlessly. This didn't come from intense struggle or great exertion. Even with exertion, success is never guaranteed. Yet without effort, many people have truly begun to experience the genuine benefits of the Dharma in their hearts. So making aspirations is a truly powerful practice. If we make such vows, it will be like the light of the sun and moon dispelling all darkness. These individuals, whether in this world or beyond, can clear away the darkness of ignorance from the minds of sentient beings. They can guide countless bodhisattvas to ultimately dwell in the single vehicle. Therefore, wise people, upon hearing of the merits of this sutra, should uphold it with profound faith. After the Buddha's parinirvana, if one can uphold the Lotus Sutra, they will certainly, beyond any shadow of a doubt, attain spiritual accomplishment very quickly. And don't be in such a hurry. There is still one more chapter to go. Why are you so eager to get to sleep? Gungo. Marta ter gondronde jerkanana tayont rete oi gornga kachiont. Next, we will discuss the chapter on entrustment. In fact, regarding the chapter on entrustment, after Kumarajiva had completed his translation, the emperor at the time, Yao Xing, questioned him. Kumarajiva led a translation bureau of about 2,000 or 3,000 people. The emperor had an older translation of the Lotus Sutra at hand. He began comparing them word for word. He found that Kumarajiva's version differed somewhat from the previous one, especially in the universal gate and medicinal herbs chapters. And as for this chapter on entrustment, in other translations it was placed at the very end, but Kumarajiva had moved it to the middle. The emperor asked him for the reason behind this. Kumarajiva replied by saying that he previously had a teacher named Suryasoma. It was from him that he received Vasubandhu's commentary and Vasubandhu's scripture. Regarding the Sanskrit manuscript that Vasubandhu had received, he was told that it was best not to change its order in the future. So at that time, according to his dialogue with the emperor, based on the dialogue he had with the emperor at that time, the verses of the Universal Gate chapter were not part of Kumarajiva's original translation. They were actually incorporated by later generations. Thus, the Chinese version of Kumarajiva's Lotus Sutra, as we know it today, has not remained entirely unchanged. It has undergone some alterations over time. However, Kumarajiva himself noted that even if his version differed somewhat in structure, it was best for people in the future to apply it exactly as it was. This record can be found in the Chronicles of the Lotus Sutra, which details the exchange between him and the emperor. The emperor's name was Yao Xing. This was a conversation that took place between them. The sequence in Kumarajiva's version is often mirrored in Sanskrit texts, and we see similar patterns in English translations today. In Sanskrit as well, it generally aligns with the standard Tibetan version. Yet Kumarajiva's translation remains quite unique. At the time, Kumarajiva himself recognized its special significance. He had also received a prophecy stating that the Lotus Sutra would flourish greatly in the northeast. Northeast, in this context, refers to the Chinese regions, so he felt very confident that, despite certain variations, this text was the most suitable for the people there. Naturally, throughout the course of history, it became clear that in Kumarajiva's original work, the verses of the Universal Gate chapter were indeed absent. There were also various other editorial revisions. This fact has long been recognized in Chinese historical scholarship. It is not as if no changes were made. Alterations definitely occurred. But the version we use today still has a legitimate lineage. Now, let us move on to the chapter on entrustment. In the Tibetan canon, the chapter on entrustment is the final chapter. Many modern editions follow this same order. I had initially intended to place it at the end as well, but then I reconsidered. If there is no pressing need to rearrange the sequence mid-course, I will continue teaching according to Kumarajiva's traditional arrangement. In truth, the principles discussed within this chapter are something we will examine in a moment. There are certain points that are well worth our reflection. At that time, Shakyamuni Buddha rose from his Dharma seat and displayed great supernormal powers. With his right hand, he touched the heads of countless bodhisattva mahasattvas. This is the origin of the head blessing tradition often seen in Tibetan Buddhism. We see instances of the Buddha blessing bodhisattvas, and sometimes even ordinary people blessing one another. One might wonder if these head blessings actually have an effect. Perhaps they do when accompanied by the recitation of mantras. Sometimes the blessing is given by touching a sacred scripture to the head. Yesterday, when I gave head blessings, I gave everyone a firm tap. For some people, giving them a firm tap leaves a much deeper impression. I once met a master at Samye Chimphu. When he gave me a head blessing, his hand was incredibly heavy. Ever since then, the memory has stayed with me. But with some masters, the head blessing is so light. It doesn't leave any impression at all. You see here, the Buddha blessed the heads of these bodhisattvas and said, across immeasurable, limitless. That's how he spoke to them then. For hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of incalculable kalpas, I practiced the hard-to-attain Dharma of supreme, perfect enlightenment. The Buddha was saying, in the past, for all those long eons, I practiced the path to supreme, perfect enlightenment. And today, this Lotus Sutra, today I entrust it to you. I pass it into your care. The Tibetan version repeats several times, I have already entrusted it to you. You must wholeheartedly propagate it and spread it far and wide throughout the world. This is the act of entrustment. You'll generally find this kind of entrustment at the end of many secret mantra teachings too. And in the Sutrayana, at the conclusion of many scriptures, the Buddha also entrusts the teaching to the assembly and the bodhisattvas. He says, finally, I entrust this Dharma to you. In this way, the Buddha touched the heads of these bodhisattva mahasattvas 3 times, and 3 times he told them, for immeasurable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of incalculable kalpas, I practice the hard-to-attain Dharma of supreme perfect enlightenment. Today I entrust it to you. You should uphold it, recite it, and teach it extensively, so that all sentient beings may hear it. When he made this entrustment, he made sure to ask everyone to connect with many beings. Now, why is that? Because while the Buddha was touching their heads 3 times, in our Tibetan tradition, for instance, when we give empowerments, it follows a similar pattern. Regarding this text and this oral transmission, I hope you'll pass it on to everyone in the future. It's common in the Sutrayana as well. A master gives the transmission of a book to the disciple and asks them to pass it on to others. That's the act of entrustment. It's how things have been done for generations. But why do it this way? Because the Tathagata has such immense kindness and compassion. He isn't stingy and he has no fear. He can grant wisdom to every single sentient being. He doesn't hold anything back. He's not like us ordinary people who are afraid of others finding out what we know, being tight-fisted or insecure. It's not like that. He has achieved the 4 fearlessnesses. The Buddha gives wisdom to all humans and devas, the wisdom of the Tathagata and spontaneous wisdom. What kind of wisdom does he give? First, there's the wisdom of the Tathagata, and then there's the opening of our own spontaneous primordial wisdom, just like what's taught in the secret mantra. The Buddha's wisdom resonates with your own. The Tathagata is the great benefactor of all sentient beings. The Buddha is the ultimate benefactor. Usually when we hear the word benefactor, we picture a layperson with a lot of money. Oh, look, such and such great benefactor has arrived. Some people act very respectful around these wealthy donors. I won't go into more stories about great benefactors. Sometimes when I start talking, I end up offending quite a few people. The Tathagata is the true great benefactor. Why? Because he gives to every single sentient being without any stinginess or fear, the ultimate gift of wisdom. You too should follow and learn the Tathagata's Dharma. Don't be stingy. The Buddha told them at that time, you should follow the Tathagata's example. Don't hold anything back. Sometimes people won't even let others look at their Dharma texts. Even now, among our Dharma friends, I see some stinginess when we're listening to teachings. For instance, when a newcomer sits down next to them, they simply won't share their book. It happens all the time. But then some are very kind and let them have a look. Newcomers often have no idea what part of the teaching we're on, so show them the text and point out where we are. When we're chanting, help them follow along. But some people get really protective and especially stingy when someone sits next to them. I've seen it myself during our recitations, these new people just looking around, not knowing what to do. They really want to follow along, but some people are just, well, then there are those who are wonderful. Since they already know the prayers by heart, they'll just open the book and set it down for the other person. If the person loses their place, they'll gently point, here, right here. That's having a heart without stinginess. It's a beautiful thing. You can really see someone's character in these small moments, and it leaves an impression on others too. Wow, that person was so kind. I sat next to them once, and they were so compassionate, sharing their text with me. Or, when I first came, that person wasn't very nice. They wouldn't let me see anything, and I was just lost, even though it's just a small thing, just one class. The stinginess of the person sitting next to you, or whatever you want to call it, well, it definitely makes a difference. For some, I guess it's just their personality. It's not like they're trying to be stingy, but they just seem, looking at the balance between studying Buddhism and just being a good human being a good person, is actually the harder part. I really feel that way sometimes. Studying the Dharma isn't actually that tough. If you're serious about your studies and you really dive into Madhyamaka or logic and work hard at it, you can eventually master those subjects on your own. But being a good person, dealing with people beside you, in front of you, behind, above, and below you. I mentioned this in Beijing. The smog in our interpersonal relationships. We all have to play so many different roles. It's true. Sometimes it feels like being a decent person is just plain exhausting. You need one kind of attitude for those above you, another way of being with those below you, and yet another for those in the middle. But even if I think someone is above me, they might not see it that way. They might think they are the ones above me. So how we treat others, whether it's our own family, our Dharma friends, or our colleagues, navigating these relationships is tricky. If someone is really selfish, they end up offending everyone. And while some people think their conscience is clear, the truth is that others might not be able to stand them. This is why we as practitioners really need to learn how to be good people. With today's focus on exam-driven education, there's almost no training on how to handle human relationships. Since we were kids, it's always been about studying ABC, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. But as for how to be a good person, many of us grow up and might even leave this world without ever really figuring it out. Sometimes when it comes to being a good person, we don't even need to talk about the high standards of a bodhisattva. That's an incredibly high level. I mean, just the basic way of being human. We might think we're doing great, but it's actually really tough. For me, studying the 5 great treatises isn't that hard, but being a good person, that's still the challenge. No matter what group, social setting, or job you're in, even if it's just 2 people sharing a room for a single night, being a good person isn't as easy as it looks. The Tathagata is the great benefactor of all sentient beings. Don't be stingy with it. In the future, if you meet any good men or women who have faith in the Tathagata's wisdom, you should definitely expound this Lotus Sutra for them. If there are people like that in the future, and that includes us right here too, if there really are people like that down the road, I hope you'll still take the time to teach them. Even if you can't go through the whole Lotus Sutra, you can still share a few key quotes from it. Help them connect with the wisdom of the Tathagata. Now, if you run into folks who just aren't into the Lotus Sutra, well, in that case, share other profound teachings with them instead. Teach them the Prajnaparamita or something else they can relate to, like Om Mani Padme Hum or Om Vajra Sattva Hum. See what they actually have an affinity for. You might ask, have you ever read the Lotus Sutra? And they say, hey, it's not really my thing. Then you go, oh, I totally get it. It's not for everyone. How about I share some verses from Summary of Prajnaparamita with you? Have you checked out the Diamond Sutra? Nah, I'm not a fan of that one either. Yeah, fair enough. The Diamond Sutra can be pretty dense. Let's find something else for you. What do you think of the Heart Sutra? Oh, that one's only 200 words. I can handle that. If that's what they can accept, then teach them that. We should always follow the principle of showing, teaching, benefiting, and gladdening. That's so important. Otherwise, if they don't like it and you keep pushing, why don't you like it? Look, it's amazing. Well, that doesn't help. I heard about this one laywoman who said that every time she had class, she would literally drag her husband and plop him down in front of the TV. The poor guy was miserable, but she was relentless. You have to do this. She didn't ask for much else, but when it was class time, she absolutely insisted he sit there and listen. He was pained, and she was pained too. She said she was doing it for his own benefit, but that just doesn't work. Forcing someone like that, that's not how it's done. So we shouldn't act that way. If you can do this, meaning if you can follow this approach by sharing the sutra with those who are open to it and using other teachings to benefit those who are not, then you are truly repaying the kindness of the Buddha. At that point, upon hearing these words, all the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas were filled with immense joy and a profound sense of physical and mental bliss. All of these bodhisattvas instinctively bowed with great respect, lowering their heads and pressing their palms together. They spoke in perfect unison before the Buddha, saying, "World honored one, regarding your instructions, we will definitely do exactly as you have taught us. Please, Buddha, do not worry, you can rest assured." The Bodhisattva Mahasattvas repeated these words 3 times. This was how they responded after the Buddha entrusted them 3 times, basically saying, you've got to do a great job spreading this in the future. But if people just aren't into the Lotus Sutra, teach them something else instead. This point is really important. We shouldn't try to force this specific teaching on someone if they're not ready for it. After they had said this 3 times, Shakyamuni Buddha allowed all his emanation Buddhas to return to their own lands. All the other Buddhas, following their own conditions, including the Tathagata Prabhutaratna, were then able to go back to their respective worlds. Now, it is mentioned here that some other commentaries on the Lotus Sutra discuss this sequence. In the Universal Gate chapter, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva offered his jeweled necklace to both Prabhutaratna and Shakyamuni Buddha. Some scholars argue that if this chapter were in the middle, placing the chapter on entrustment, there wouldn't make much sense. It really fits best at the very end. Think about it. How could Avalokiteshvara offer his necklace if the Buddhas had already left? If this chapter were positioned in the middle, Prabhutaratna would have already gone back home. The logic of the subsequent events would be a bit off. Great masters like Janran, Kuiji, and Ji actually had many different views on this. The 9th patriarch of the Tiantai school even had some debates with Master Janran about it. But honestly, either way is fine. Some masters point out that in texts like the Diamond Sutra, it is perfectly reasonable for an entrustment chapter to appear in the middle. The same goes for the Ratnakuta Sutra, which has many chapters. It's not unusual to see an entrustment there either, so that placement can also be justified. At the end of the day, we don't need to get too caught up in these distinctions. As long as it is the Vajra words of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, it's all valid. So at that point, Shakyamuni Buddha dismissed his emanation Buddhas. Prabhutaratna Buddha also returned to his own land. Some accounts say the massive jeweled stupa then closed up. At this time, the countless emanation Buddhas from all 10 directions, including those seated on lion thrones beneath the jeweled trees, along with Vishistakaritra and the others. Vishistakaritra is the lead bodhisattva mentioned here. He and a limitless, incalculable number of bodhisattvas, just a massive assembly of them, plus Shariputra, the 4-fold assembly of Shravakas, and the Devas, humans, and Asuras from every world, all rejoiced greatly upon hearing the Buddha's words. This is the chapter on entrustment. In Tibetan, this chapter is the last chapter. Kumarajiva placed it in chapter 22. So today we finished teaching this chapter.
Bandara Badna Sodargye Bandara Badna Sodargye Bandara Badna Sodargye